So today we're going to go a bit of a different route. We're going to go with a situation that I have kind of formulated inside of my head, but also it's been rumored recently. And that is with the new head coaching hire of Pete Carroll going to the Raiders. I feel as though the Raiders are either going to get Russell Wilson because of that history that they have, or they're going to go and try to trade for the number one pick. Now, yes, the Titans have said we're going to take a generational talent at the first pick. But if they're able to get a package sort of like this one, I mean, maybe a little less, maybe a little more if it's involving a first round pick next year. I assume that it would, but I'm not trying to go too over the top. I'll let the trade, Bleacher Report, all those type of platforms do that situation. But I'm just doing the basis of what I think that it will have for the most part. But I feel like the Raiders could very well push for that number one pick. And it would probably be the best situation for the Titans to fall to the sixth spot if they still want to get a generational talent, which we will see if it ends up falling to that point. But I feel as though the Raiders could have a chance to move up to the number one pick. And I mean, immediately off the rip, we know with the connections that Mark Davis and Tom Brady have had with this specific quarterback, Shador Sanders is more than likely going to go to the Raiders if they make that trade to go to the number one pick. And I mean, he's great. Shador Sanders is a great prospect. He could be right up there with Cam Ward. I still continue to feel like Cam Ward is the best quarterback in this draft class. But Shador Sanders has trained with Tom Brady. He can continue to train with Tom Brady in this situation. He can get to that level if Tom Brady is able to show him the tangibles that you need off of the field and to take onto the field. And Shador Sanders has that kind of calm, cool, and collected type of demeanor when he's in the pocket and is able to move out when he needs to. And he's very accurate for the most part. At some points, it's a bit questionable. But he has a great arm. And as much as I think Cam Ward's arm is a little bit better, Shador Sanders is probably the best scenario for Mark Davis and Tom Brady. And now Pete Carroll. Hopefully he can develop quickly within the next 4 years that Pete Carroll's supposed to be there. And maybe they have another coach that's just going to continue the scheme. But moving on to the second pick, the Cleveland Browns. And I've had the Cleveland Browns taking Travis Hunter in these past couple drafts, basically through and through. And to be completely honest with you, I might go a different route. I think that with Deshaun Watson and his basically lack of competency and not being able to stay on the field, and now he's not wearing a boot when he needs to, that could very well void his contract, fully guaranteed contract, quote unquote, and the Browns could take advantage of that and try to move on quickly. And I think moving on quickly could be a good scenario if Cam Ward is on the board. If Cam Ward is an option to take after the number one pick, I could very well see the Browns taking advantage of that. And Cam Ward is mature enough of a passer and a QB to be able to come in and have an immediate impact. Hopefully they're able to get more weapons, but offensive line is good enough for the time being. They're aging, so they might need to invest a little bit into that. But Cam Ward is a tremendous talent, and he definitely progressed a lot going to this year in the last year of his college eligibility. But I think that scenario of him going to the Browns could be a good one. And Travis Hunter may very well fall in this situation because the New York Giants have had a lot of eyes on Jackson Dart. And I mean, word around the league is that the Giants could very well take Jackson Dart if Shador Sanders is not there. I'm sure a lot of Giants fans are not going to love it. But I think that Jackson Dart could have the same type of rise that Jaden Daniels did coming to the draft after the college football season, looking at his film over time, looking at his tangibles, looking at his size specifically, and possibly the combine, he can perform very well. I'm going to go with Jackson Dart in this one, but that is only because I've heard so much about Jackson Dart going to the Giants and just the Giants wanting Jackson Dart or just being very high on him that I feel like they could take him at the third pick if he ends up progressing that much in the draft process. Now, they could also just take him in the second round. You take Travis Hunter right now, but we're going with a scenario that 3 quarterbacks come off the board immediately with the way that things have been forming in itself. And I'm going to have Jackson Dart going there. I'm sure that I'm going to be crucified by Giants fans, but that's fine. I think I'm confident in Jackson Dart getting a little bit more attention over time. I mean, even somebody like Will Howard, I feel like is going to get a lot more attention with his size, with his ability to get out the pocket and run for significant amount of yards. He has some good speed. Jalen Milroe's a bit of a prospect, and Dylan Gabriel is your ideal quarterback that possibly is going to be a backup for a while in the league. But I think Jackson Dart could have the potential to be a possible Jaden Daniels, maybe in terms of potential wise, not specifically. But moving on to the New England Patriots, we're going to go with offensive line. And I know Abdul Carter's still on the board. Oh, Travis Hunter's still on the board. If we're being honest, that offensive line is the most desperate need for this Patriots team, and them just needing something for Drake May to rely on and not have to be worried when he's in the pocket. If Will Campbell is back there and he is in the trenches for Drake May, I think he would be a lot more comfortable being able to go through his progressions, being able to do what he needs to do to be able to get the correct pass and the correct decision for this team to win some games. But I think tackle is ultimately what the Patriots are going to go with. And I'm sure I've already pissed multiple fans already. While the Jacksonville Jaguars are here, and this is where I'm going to have Travis Hunter's false stop. I know. But cornerback is a thing that the Jaguars have been needing. And it's been kind of lacking in that room. They, at one point, had a pretty good cornerback room, but bringing in a player like Travis Hunter, while, yes, Mason Graham would be an amazing fit next to Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen, Travis Hunter is way too much of a generational talent to just be like, oh, okay, like, we'll pass on him just to get Mason Graham and fill out our defensive line. Travis Hunter can come in and be a lockdown corner. And also, with a new head coach in Liam Cohen, I can see him going into packages on the offensive side in a way that it's not almost forced like Taysom Hill, but that it's fluid. And Travis Hunter has amazing ball skills. I think that they would be able to utilize him correctly, as the Tennessee Titans get exactly what they want. They get exactly what they want. They traded their number 1 pick. They got a bunch of picks out of it, maybe some players out of it, like the Bears and the Panthers ended up doing. But they get Abdul Carter regardless. And they might take him at the number 1 pick like I had in the previous mock draft. But if they have a scenario that they have so much picks coming to them for that number 1 pick, I don't see them passing up on it, with the possibility of getting even more players on the team. It's definitely going to involve first-round picks. I just don't know how many, and I didn't even want to get into that conversation with that. As Abdul Carter is going to go to the Tennessee Titans, I think he is the best player in this draft, and I think he will continue to be going into the draft process, going into pro days, going into the combine. I think Abdul Carter has a lot of talent, and I think he can continue to rise, and I still feel as though that him and Myles Garrett are almost like on the same playing field in terms of them coming into the league, and he could have that type of immediate impact that Myles Garrett had on the Browns. But the New York Jets are going to be taking Mason Graham. Mason Graham is an absolute game wrecker, and I've been loving him ever since the start of the season. And I think that on top of that, I was very hesitant to go with him just because I was high on Tyler Warren, and he continues to go higher and higher in my board, I would say. And I think the Jets could go with Tyler Warren if Mason Graham isn't on the board and he goes to the Jaguars, say, and Travis Hunter goes earlier. But Tyler Warren going to the Jets could be a perfect scenario for Breece Hall and whatever quarterback that they have coming in or coming back. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to end up bringing back Aaron Rodgers, maybe develop another quarterback like Jalen Milroe for a year. Who knows? We'll end up seeing. Maybe I just predicted it. But Mason Graham being next to one of the best defensive interior players in the league, and with a defense that kind of just needs that jolt that Mason Graham can bring, being the rookie that he is. I think it would be beautiful. I think they can add a significant piece with Mason Graham being there. But the Carolina Panthers are looking at a scenario that Bryce Young had a hell of a finish to the year. And I think they continue to add to that finish and bring in Tatario McMillan. Tatario McMillan would be a lethal weapon for him as much as they need defense. I think that they need to add a little bit more talent for Bryce Young. And that may very well be their last wide receiver pick or wide receiver pickup for the foreseeable future, since they have Xavier Legette, but I don't think Xavier Legette's a number one option. Tatario McMillan is a number one option. And putting him with Bryce Young would be a match that I would love to watch for years to come, with a franchise that seemed like they're on the outs for a while, as the New Orleans Saints are on the clock. And I feel as though it's pretty clear that they're going to go with a specific position, and that is edge. But I'm going to have them taking Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams out of Georgia is someone who we watched basically play hurt all season, and he still played at a good level. And I think with him getting more healthy over the offseason and being able to train fully going into this draft, he could bring a lot to a defensive front that keeps adding more and more prospects to basically hold that identity that the Saints have always had, and that's being one of the more talented defensive fronts in the league. And Mykel Williams could help out with that, especially with the run defense. And I think the Chicago Bears could try to help Caleb Williams out more. I think Ben Johnson is definitely going to be focusing on that offensive line. And obviously guard, I just can't see going in the first round, but I could see prospects that are offensive tackles going in the first round that they could move to guard. And that one for me is going to be Kelvin Banks with the Chicago Bears. I think Kelvin Banks has a lot of talent, and moving him on the inside temporarily could be the solution for this team and could be exactly what Caleb Williams needs to not worry so much about making that big play, that big game-changing play, because it seems like almost every single time he drops back, he is worried about having to make that game-changing play when you just need to go through your progressions. You need to go through the play call that Ben Johnson and the offensive coordinator that they now have, that is one of the youngest offensive coordinators in the league, could bring a different type of regime that Eberflus just didn't have for Caleb Williams coming in. But hell of a pick by Eberflus. While the San Francisco 49ers, I think, are also going to go with a offensive line prospect. And it's going to be Armand from Missouri. I think that he is one of the most technically sound tackles or offensive linemen in this class. And bringing him into a 49ers offensive line that basically thrives off of the offensive line, he doesn't have to play tackle immediately. They have Trent Williams. They can move him inside. He can learn throughout the years, and then they can move him out when need be, but they don't have to immediately rush him into being a tackle against some of the best edge rushers that we've ever seen in NFL history. And I think Armand can be a great offensive line player for this 49ers team that was lacking a lot of depth this year and struggled a significant amount. While the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, I really don't have to get into it too much. We know that Ashton Jeanty should be going to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the new head coaching hire that was very interesting could very well go a different route and just be straight up stupid and not take Ashton Jeanty. But Ashton Jeanty is the best running back prospect that we've seen in some time. And between his incredible balance, his incredible his incredible eyes to be able to have that quick decision making to burst out for a big run is almost Saquon Barkley-like. And I think that Ashton Jeanty could rival him at some point, and I think that he very well may be the best player coming out of this draft going into the future. As the Miami Dolphins, I've had them taking tackle. Specifically Josh Simmons, and it would be Josh Simmons at this point, but with murmurs about Javon Holland basically probably going to walk from the Dolphins because the Dolphins are not going to re-sign him, just like they did with Christian Wilkins. I think they go Malachi Starks if Javon Holland is not on the team. Malachi Starks is another tremendous talent and could very well be the last talent on the board that could come in, be a starter immediately, and have an incredible impact. And Malachi Starks in Georgia was really one of the only bright spots on that Georgia defense that was able to make that play that the defense would need to really shift the momentum. And it would start a new regime in this Dolphins defense to have these younger players kind of take over, and it would leave Jalen Ramsey to be able to leave because he keeps bitching and complaining, and Tyreek Hill to be able to leave since he's also bitching and complaining. So they can both leave. This can be a new young team focused around the younger players. Tua's the leader. I know that they're probably going to try to go offensive line regardless, but I feel like Malachi Starks is so hard to pass up on if he's there at the 13th spot. I love him going there as much as I love Tyler Warren going to the Indianapolis Colts. Tyler Warren is one of the better talents, and specifically as a tight end, because he can block for Jonathan Taylor and he can be reliable for Anthony Richardson. He can be the focal point of this offense, and that's exactly what they've been trying to look for. I think Tyler Warren can come in and make this team almost playoff contenders if they actually get like their shit together and aren't kind of lackadaisical at points, like Anthony Richardson tapping out on a third down when if you didn't get the first down, you're able to rest a down later. But if you don't, then you can call a timeout and get rest. But anyways, Tyler Warren is my favorite tight end that I've seen in my time of even doing mock drafts in general. So hopefully he goes to a situation like that I think they can utilize him properly. As the Atlanta Falcons are going to take Will Johnson. Will Johnson has already fallen this far. I used to be very high on Will Johnson at one point, but I think the more that I kind of looked over his tape and saw certain things, I still think he is a great talent, but he has a bit of a tackling issue, and his speed is not tremendous, which made him piss poor, or not amazing for not being rude about it, in man coverage. And a lot of teams want to go man coverage at points, and they don't need a top cornerback prospect being the reason for them getting beat in man. So Will Johnson, I think with the Atlanta Falcons in their usual scheme, he'll be tremendous and add a great counterpart to AJ Terrell. But the man coverage is definitely questionable. As the Arizona Cardinals, basically, I feel like a lot of these teams that are kind of trying to get into a new era of their defense need dynamic players. They need players that are going to not jump off the page for a lot of people, but they have tremendous versatility. And for me, Jalen Walker is a perfect fit for the Arizona Cardinals. There's been rumors about him going in the top 10 at points. I don't know if that's very smart, but I like Jalen Walker a lot. I think going to the Arizona Cardinals, while he is undersized as an edge rusher, they have him lined up as an off-ball linebacker. And he has a sort of explosiveness and playmaking ability that could bring a lot to this defense. As another team that could be focused on the defense with a defensive coordinator hiring and firing could look at that. And I've had them taking Luther Burden for a while. But at this very moment, I think I'm going to go Walter Nolan going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I like Walter Nolan a lot. His pass rush is incredible, and he's just as good on the run defense. And with them losing DJ Reader last year, or I think it was last year, they need to fill that in. They have tremendous edge rushers, but then if they close it up, the defensive interior is not making as much of a difference to be able to stop the quarterback from just running straight down the middle, or even in the run game in general, they can just run it down their throat, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it because they don't have a defensive interior player like Walter Nolan to help out. While the the Seattle Seahawks at the 18th spot are a team that I'm also going to have going defensive interior. And it's going to be Kenneth Grant. McDonald used to be part of the staff at Michigan, and he could see the talent in Kenneth Grant. I don't think if Kenneth Grant falls past this point, he could possibly fall to the Bills or one of these teams that could use defensive interior. But with their free agency players possibly not even coming back, or nor probably do they want them to, he could join Leonard Williams. He could join a room that he could learn a lot from, but he also has a lot of untapped potential that he could grow into with the Seattle Seahawks defense that seems to be growing into one of the better defenses in the league if they keep on investing into it. As the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I've also had taking edge. But today I'm not going to have them taking edge. I'm going to have them taking a linebacker with the fact that Levante David and some other linebacker free agency players could be leaving. Now, I don't see Levante David leaving, but I still think that they need to look at the front seven and specifically the ones that drop back into coverage. And Jahad Campbell out of Alabama is a talent that the Bucs could definitely use. I think that Jahad Campbell could be a clear leader if Levante David ends up leaving for a younger defense since they've been losing a lot of their veterans. And he has a good amount of talent to be able to make up for it. And he's able to fill in that Levante David role that I think the Bucs would be trying to look for. And unfortunately, they just went through a very interesting situation with their coordinator in Liam Cohen. But the defense should still be this Bucs identity. And as much as I want to help out Vita Vea on that line, they need to be able to drop back into coverage. Jahad Campbell's able to do it both, really. And with the Denver Broncos at the 20th pick, I've had them taking Colson Loveland if Tyler Warren's already on the board, off the board. I looked more into their other positions of need, and safety is definitely a spot that I could see them going with. And specifically, Nick Emanwari. Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina almost reminds me of Derwin James. He has great instincts, and he could bring a lot of production to this Broncos secondary that lost Justin Simmons and have been relying on Brandon Jones to be their star safety, while Nick Emanwari can basically come in and be that. Obviously, he's going to have to progress into it, but they're a very stout defense that just needs a little bit more talent when it comes to the pass coverage, because their line is, or performed as one of the best in the league. Not very standout names, but they could use that as well. But I think safety and tight end is definitely the situation I could see the Denver Broncos going with. It hurts me not to go with Colson Loveland, which is why I hesitated so much talking about it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going with any other wide receiver prospect but Emeka Egbuka. I know Luther Burden's here. I feel like they want somebody like Emeka Egbuka that can come in. If he needs to be the wide receiver 2, he's going to be the wide receiver 2. But if they move on from George Pickens, he can also be a wide receiver 1. I think that he could be a leader for the wide receiver room in Pittsburgh and bring a lot to the team in terms of just his raw talent. He had great years at Ohio State. I mean, he was part of some of the best wide receiver rooms that we've ever seen in college football. And I like Emeka Egbuka a lot, and going to a Mike Tomlin team in general would just be a perfect scenario for Emeka, as the Los Angeles Chargers are very clearly going to go Colson Loveland. I mean, Harbaugh loves the fact that he fell to this point because formerly his recruit was a piece on the offense that he relied on as much as the coaching staff last year did too with Michigan. And Colson Loveland can come in and be that same reliable factor for Justin Herbert, since the only one that they can rely on is Ladd McConkey, which at points he can get double teamed, basically just kind of takes him out the game. Grew into being able to break out of those. But if you're able to have two players that are going to be reliable, have Ladd McConkey, have Colston Loveland, the defense is not going to be able to double both players unless they leave somebody else just absolutely open, like Quentin Johnson, which has a dropping the ball problem. But Colston Loveland can come in, be that guy for Justin Herbert, start making Justin Herbert more comfortable as a quarterback and not have to worry about, oh, who am I going to pass it to if they drop it? What am I going to do? Colston Loveland and Ladd McConkey are their top picks that I could see them having, as the Green Bay Packers have been a team that I have had going corner through and through. But they love SEC players. They really do. They love SEC players on their front seven. Shamar Stewart being here and having the year that he had for this Texas A&M team, it's hard for me to go anywhere else but Shamar Stewart. Now, if he was off the board, I could 100% see them still going corner. But I like Shamar Stewart going to the Packers with their tendencies that they've had in the past. No matter what they need, they might just invest in it in free agency. I mean, there's some cornerback free agents, as the Minnesota Vikings are a team that could also use corners, and now they basically have whatever pick they want, obviously, except for Will Johnson and players like that. Jahdae Barron could very well be a top 15 pick, for sure. Top 15, I don't know about top 10. Top 15, Jahdae Barron, his basically meteoric rise that he had at Texas this season, especially going into the playoffs and in the playoffs, he has some of the best ball skills that I saw this year and unbelievable quickness. I love Jahdae Barron as a prospect. I think that he could bring a lot to this Vikings team that is looking for that. They have their CB1. I think they just need somebody that's going to be able to make unbelievable plays like Jahdae Barron can. And the Houston Texans, I've also had taking the same position at most points with defensive interior. I think Walter Nolan was really the one that I feel like they would have went with, and if he was off the board, they're not going defensive interior in the first round. Luther Burden is still on the board. And with Stephon Diggs probably leaving in free agency, what better than to go for Luther Burden, who basically has the same type of tangibles that Stephon Diggs has. And with Tank Dell being out next year, you need to look at that at least. And if Luther Burden falls to the 25th pick, that is a steal of a pick for the Houston Texans going into the future. And the LA Rams are going to stick with what they've been going with, but with a great talent in Josh Simmons. We've talked about his stats. We've talked about what he allowed in the games that he played at Ohio State, but just his size and ability, and I love the way that he gets off the line. I think that going to this Rams team that continues to invest in their offensive line going into the future, whether it's for Matthew Stafford or a future quarterback, Matthew Stafford still probably has a couple years left in him. But if they're able to have a solidified line and not have to worry about, oh, we're going to have a rookie quarterback come in and he's going to have a mediocre offensive line, they can have one of the best in the league and just be able to develop whoever they want to at that quarterback position. But moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to stick with my guy, Darian Porter. Darian Porter hasn't been getting a lot of attention. I still like him a lot because of his size and potential. He has a lot of potential. Yes, he sucks in man. But I think going to this Ravens team, going to a spot that Nate Wiggins was able to thrive a bit, Darian Porter can do the same, but with a little bit more size and length. I like him a lot. Hopefully he ends up performing well throughout the process of the offseason. And I think going back to the Jackson Dart pick, because I'm sure a lot of Giants fans are pissed about it still. I think at the Pro Bowl he might, or the Senior Bowl, sorry. At the Senior Bowl, he's going to be able to perform very well. Now, we're not going to see Will Howard, unfortunately, because he went to the national championship. But we could see some bright spots from Jackson Dart in that Senior Bowl, as the Detroit Lions are definitely going edge, and James Pierce may very well be the pick that they would want to go with besides Jack Sawyer. If James Pierce is on the board, I think that's a pretty clear pick with just his explosiveness, his potential. He has a lot of potential, and like we've said before, he was a top 5 prospect coming into this next year after the last draft. He was up there, and a lot of people thought that he was going to be that guy coming into this one, but obviously Abdul Carter became the one that made that leap in Penn State. James Pierce Jr. just wasn't able to perform as well as a lot of people thought, but I still think he has a lot of untapped potential, and being on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson could help him a lot, since a lot of that pressure would be off his shoulders. As the Washington Commanders, I mean, we saw it in that championship game. They need to go offensive line. The second that Cosme goes down with a torn ACL, there is no time for Jaden Daniels to make any sort of decision. The defensive line was coming in almost immediately, which a lot of people knew. Jalen Carter was going to be able to do that, especially with Jordan Davis next to him at points, because Jordan Davis isn't in there the whole time. Jalen Carter was just getting through, and the offensive line cannot do anything about it. And Connor Lee would be a great addition for this offensive line, playing on one of the best teams in college football, and he was a main contributor to that. And I think he can continue to be for this Commanders offense, as the Buffalo Bills, who had a heartbreaking loss last night with the Chiefs beating them, of course, yay, another Chiefs Super Bowl. I think they're going to focus on cornerback. Cornerback is too much of a position of need and possible loss with Rasul Douglas maybe not coming back. We don't know if they're going to be able to re-sign him. But they need to look at corner, and they need to be able to look at it with, as much as I want to go offense, try to get more weapons for Josh, nobody on offense really performed except for Matt Collins and James Cook. Both of those players had a great game. Everybody else basically non-existent. Khalil Shakir could not get out as much as he usually does on screens. Dalton Kincaid missed a crucial catch at the end of the game. And Keon Coleman just never really got a chance with the jump balls. Maybe at some points were pass interferences, but you can't leave it up to jump balls and the refs at that point to be able to decide the game. But you can leave it up to the cornerbacks. And when Benford ended up getting out because of a recurring concussion, we saw Kyrie Elam come into the game. And immediately I knew that was going to be the reason why they lost the game. Every single time a score happened for the Chiefs, Kaiir Elam was there as a defender. And you cannot leave it up to Kaiir Elam to be the guy that makes the game-changing play. He has never been that. And I honestly think that they need to cut him, but they're probably not going to. But they need to get at least somebody that has a very bright future and possibility to be a great corner for this team, even if it's a CB3 or a CB4. Anything is better than Kaiir Elam, and I feel like Shaban Revel has a lot of potential to either have a very high floor or a decent, or a very high ceiling or a decent floor. And I think the floor is higher than Kaiir Elam's ceiling is even at, as I'm pretty confident in that in the cornerback position. Maybe Benjamin Morrison might be their more preferred pick just because he's a little bit more of a for sure. I think Shaban Revel could bring a lot. As I keep doing that. As the Philadelphia Eagles are also going to go corner, but it's a pick that has been falling down the ranks with Benjamin Morrison. Benjamin Morrison could bring a lot to this team, and also because Darius Slay basically confirmed that this last home game against the Commanders is probably his last. And they can't just continue to lose cornerbacks and not put additions into that defensive back room. And the more that you invest into it, like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, you get a Benjamin Morrison who could play very well for this Eagles team. He doesn't have to be the star. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell is basically that for that cornerback room. Benjamin Morrison could be a great talent for them to be able to get that on their defense. And I mean, the Chiefs are basically in a situation that it's whatever tackle falls to them. And for me, I like Wyatt Millum a lot. I almost don't want him to go to the Chiefs. I like Wyatt Millum. I like his size. I like his talent. Played at West Virginia. Just an absolute fucking unit. I think that he would be great. But with him basically having to be an immediate player for the Chiefs on that tackle position, I still think it's better than having Joe Thuney move out to the left tackle position and take him out of his natural one. It's definitely better than what they had at tackle before. But Wyatt Millum is going to be my guy going to the Kansas City Chiefs. And to say that I'm not excited about the Super Bowl is a bit of an understatement. Because the same shit again with the Chiefs. Like, I would have rather watch the Eagles-Commanders championship game again for the Super Bowl. I know it's not possible. But I'm saying, I don't want to see the Chiefs. I really don't. It's kind of old. I'm rooting for the Eagles because, I'm a Chiefs hater. I just don't. It's boring football. They play very boring football. And yes, it wins, but it shouldn't at points. I mean, it was a BS call for the Josh Allen first down. I still feel like that should have been a first down. And that was a crucial call because then the Chiefs turned it around, scored immediately. What are you going to do? That was 7 points that you just gave because of a shit spot by the refs. But there's not much that you can do in those situations. You can't really leave it up to the refs, but I like this draft. This is kind of me trying to foresee it as much as I can with the draft process. It's almost like a prediction-wise of Jackson Dart jumping up, Nick Manwari going to the Broncos, a lot of different players falling, like Will Johnson, Malachi Starks going to the Dolphins instead of an offensive tackle. I like it. Let me know what you think. Comment down below who you're a fan of and how you feel about who I picked for y'all. And maybe I'll take it into consideration for the next mock draft. I always read y'all's comments. I always try to respond to everybody. I think I've responded to almost everybody unless it's a dumb comment in terms of like just negativity. But I love talking to you guys down in the comments below. If you're down there, like so more people can see it, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the rest of these mock drafts. I have been enjoying these a lot and just researching about them. It's been fun. I think the NFL season was fun. The college football season was great. And I think we have a lot in store for this draft season. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.